Oh, hey, wondering why there's so much UFO activity being reported on right now? We have all sorts of people coming out of woodwork saying things that uh, are connected to sightings in the U.S. military, primarily the U.S. military, but remember the Brazilian military has been reporting this stuff for a few years too. But it seems to be coming to a boiling point, and it's mid 2021. What's up? The stuff, the reporting all happened 3 years ago. Leaked information, uh, corroborated by, we'll stick with the US government, and they're in the process of making a report about this unidentified aerial phenomena. I still call them UFOs because I don't belong to the US military. But why the big deal? Why now? And of course, you can't say it's a craft from another planet unless you actually know it came from another planet and you know which planet it was. But like we do a lot on this show, we talk about them not only coming from other planets, but multiple dimensions. Again, but why now? Well, my guest today is Buster Johnstone, and I've known Buster for about 3 or 4 years now. Met him first in Pasadena, California at a UFO conference, and he was walking around with these Polaroid pictures of fingerprints that were left on his Polaroids while he had, you take the picture of the Polaroid and you let it sit for a while. Well, he had let it sit, and he came back to them and said, "Oh, I must have touched these while I, held on to them too long or whatever, waiting for them to develop." So he just threw them in a drawer, and that's where they sit for many, many years. And then through watching a commercial on Polaroids, he actually realized that, yeah, you can touch them and it will wreck them. So he pulled them back out and looked at them. And that's when it dawned on him, those weren't human fingerprints. So we're going to show you some of these fingerprints right now. And it's I guess on the audio podcast, it'd be hard to see, if not impossible, unless you're really good. But on the video, you'll be able to see these a bit anyway. But we're going to get into them a little more detail. And over time, Buster had sent them off to retired FBI guy who put them together with a team of ex-CIA and other forensic analysts, and came up with an interesting conclusion on what they were. And we talk about that. Buster has been interested in ufology ever since he was a kid and would bug his dad about it every time he got a chance. And his dad, driving the car one day, pulled over and said, "Look, I'm going to tell you a couple of things, and don't want to hear about UFOs ever again." And he told Buster what he did for a living and what his job was with the U.S. Air Force. Not a spectacular find that he was, he wasn't connected with the Project Blue Book, so to speak, but he was in the know at a higher security level. And what he told Buster still kind of confirmed what Buster had been thinking and what he had been seeing as a kid. These things up in the sky. And eventually something was following him, literally following him down the street, about the size of a basketball, orange kind of orby thing off behind the fences and stuff. And we get into that. Well, Buster has written a book. It is called First Contact 02-2022. So February 2022. If you Google that, you can get it from the Amazons. They'll deliver it to your house. And it's First Contact. There's been a lot of movies. There's a number of books called First Contact, but his is First Contact 02-2022. So 02-2022. And we get into why 02-2022, where that number comes from. And probably kind of will leave you thinking the same direction that I'm thinking, that there is something coming. And the governments around the world know it. It's coming. Whether there's disclosure or not, whether they finally break their policy of keeping a lot of this stuff secret, kind of in a dumpster in the back room, internationally, or they let us know globally. So is it coming in February 2022? And that's why things are really starting to percolate around the Pentagon. Are they getting a little bit anxious on who's going to show up and how they're going to let us know that everything's going to be okay? I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. But that's what Buster's book's about. Again, it's First Contact 02-2022. You can get it on by the Amazons. You can have, I think Buster says it's on Barnes and Noble right now. It literally is the first interview he's done. And you probably are going to hear a lot about him in the next few months, because this book itself, it's almost like it was channeled to him. And we don't touch on this in the interview, but it was very, very interesting. He had a ghostwriter because Buster is computer illiterate. He's not going to sit down on a computer and type, because he's a construction worker. He's now retired. He's a grandfather, works, does his hours at Home Depot. He's one of the guys you can't find at Home Depot. That would be Buster. Anyway, he's a consultant. He can help you lay concrete and take a wall down, but typing's not his forte. So he had a ghostwriter helping him with his book, and she put a rough draft together. It was very rough. And eventually she had to other things were piling up. She had to move on with her life. Kind of left Buster in the lurch with this draft. Sent it back to him, and he had it basically accessed on his cell phone. And a publisher got a hold of him, because he was kind of snooping around for publishers, and they got a hold of him and said, yeah, we're interested in seeing the draft on this. Oh, it's very rough. Very, very rough. Well, let me take a look at it. He opened it up on his phone, and since he had received it from the ghostwriter, and it was like saved in his phone, probably on his email or whatever, he opened the thing up, and it had been tweaked, and things had been edited and added, and paragraphs had been completed, and it was actually the book. So he sent that off to the publisher, and that was a couple of months ago, and since then it's been published, printed out for public consumption. So interesting. I've ordered my copy. Should be getting it in the next few days here. Again, it's First Contact 2020. Woof, I did it again. 02-2022 by Buster Johnstone, and Buster is here to talk about it. And I'm going to call on Liam, and he's going to start the show, and we'll get right into it. See you on the other side. Liam?
I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Hey, thank you, Liam, my funny little alien friend. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode with me over here. One of these directions. This is my buddy, Buster Johnstone. Buster, how are you today?
I'm doing great, James. How are you, sir?
I am stoked that your book finally got published.
Yes, indeed.
That was incredible. Like, you and I met, I think at the Alien Con. Was it the first time in Pasadena? Not Alien Con. Or was it Alien Con?
Yeah. It was all. I went to. First one was in Santa Clara. I don't think I met you then.
No.
I thought I met you at the Pasadena one in 17.
And then the next year we met in
19
in L.A. at the
L.A.
Giant.
That was big L.A. thing.
Yeah, yep. It was better in Pasadena.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, hopefully that's where we'll have them again after the apocalypse is done.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your book. And your book is First Contact 02-2022, not to be confused with all the other First Contact books and movies and things out there. But your book is specific to February 2022. And we'll get into the reason why that's relevant later on. But
okay.
What the heck's going on, Buster? When did you first start having, well, quote unquote, contact?
Okay, well, I got interested way back in grade school, in 4th grade. My teacher, Mrs. Rohde, introduced us to the zodiac signs and talked about the blue hole and constellations. And I just got really interested and
Cool.
started hearing about aliens and stuff like that. Well, I was in the garage with my dad since I was 9 years old when we moved out here to California. I would I would talk about aliens the whole time I was in the garage. If I didn't have homework or baseball, I was in the garage with my dad. So I would talk about them all the time. And he never said a word. And he was Air Force. And he would just never say anything. I mean, for like 10 years, I would sit and talk about aliens and this and that. And one day, I was with him out at the base, and he pulled over and he said, "Okay, I don't ever want to hear about aliens again. I'm going to tell you these two things, and that's it. Don't ever talk to me about aliens again." So he told me these two things, and they're in the book. And then he said, turn over and looked at me. He said, "Now, that's it. I don't ever want to hear about aliens again." So right then, my interest in them went through the roof, because then I knew, whoa, they're real. My dad, without saying it, yeah, go ahead.
Like, first of all, don't make me go look it up in the book. What did he tell you briefly?
Okay.
The long thing. And what was his job in the Air Force?
He was now we never knew this until this day that I talked to him. He was the radar technician on the AWACS plane whenever the president took off and went anywhere.
Right.
He had his bag ready. He'd get a phone call. He'd grab his bag and say goodbye. He'd give us all a kiss. And we never knew where he went, never knew what he did. And he left. So sometimes a month, 2 months, 3 months. So then when we were in the car, he pulled over and he said, "Okay, this is it. I'm going to tell you these two things." So he started out, I was the radar tech on the Constellation. I was watching the radar screen whenever we went anywhere. It was above the president's plane, so it put out a big umbrella over the president's plane, like 100 miles all the way around. He said, and I'll tell you what, the things we saw on that screen when we went over the Bermuda Triangle, he said, well, he never told me what he saw, but he said, we seen many things, and I saw a lot on the radar screen. And then he said, we also went to this abandoned Air Force base one time. We landed, we went into this 400-foot by 200-foot long hangar. It was empty, abandoned base, but there was a gigantic burn spot perfectly round in the middle of the floor from one side to the other. And then he said, against the walls, the 400-foot long walls, were these 1.5 wide by 4 foot tall dust images of where cubicles were sitting against the wall, all along both 400-foot sides. And each cubicle dust image had 2 refrigeration ports coming out of it. So there were little freezers, 1.5 wide, 4 foot tall, full length of both sides of the hangar. And he said, now, I don't ever want to hear about aliens again.
That's interesting that he ended it there, because it's like, that would be the beginning of the story for me. It's like, oh, no, Dad, come on. What was the refrigeration for? What the heck were these cubicles, like, what's going on?
He wouldn't elaborate on anything after that. That was for me to know that circle was put there by some perfectly round thing that was 200 feet wide. That's how big the burn spot was in the floor. And then he switched right to the dust cubicles. And he said the cubicles were gone, but the dust images were there. and there was 2 refrigeration ports coming out of each one. And then he said, now I don't ever want to hear it again. So I have got a lot of common sense. I'm pretty smart. I just put 2 and 2 together. And from then on, I wouldn't talk about him. Well, I really couldn't, because he didn't want to hear about it anymore. And I didn't. Then when he died at 49 in 82, really young. At his funeral, all his buddies came that were still alive. I walked up to Mr. Stewart and said, hey, Mr. Stewart, you know, my dad told me these 2 things. And he goes, yeah, Buster, come on, let's go get a beer. I went, okay. So I walked up to Mr. Taylor. And Mr. Taylor, hey, my dad told me these 2 things. And he said, well, okay. Well, that's good. Let's go get something to eat. And neither one said anything. Just, okay, yep. And then Mr. Smith, I said, hey, Smitty, here, my dad told me these 2 things. And my dad was like 5, 6 feet away over in the coffin, right? We're both watching, seeing him. And Mr. Smith turns around and looks at me and he goes, Buster, don't you ever speak about that again. Your dad was top secret. He was classified. Don't ever repeat what you said. Just forget it. I don't ever want to hear anything about that again. More corroboration, more telling me that, yep, you're right. He was right, but don't ever say that again. So got my confirmation all over the place.
And that obviously didn't slow down your curiosity.
That just heightened it. Just heightened it, because they, instead of saying anything, the first 2 really just said, yeah, come on, let's go get something. But Mr. Smith was the deciding factor. He's the one that really, really convinced me.
Yeah, it's funny how, like, you know, as being somebody who worked in the government, and you're trying to, policy says, yeah, you don't want to tell the public about the cause of this. You know, it's a personal accident between 2 families. You know, one guy committed suicide, whatever, and the media is out there trying to get the bottom of things, and the you know, the local papers digging into it, and they're asking you details that is personal for the people involved. And you just say, look, instead of coming out saying it's a private matter between the families and I have nothing to say, there's always somebody who comes out saying, we have no comment. And the no comment actually says more about the incident than, you know, it's a personal matter, which is the truth. And we really don't want to comment on it because it's between the families, and, you know, showing some empathy. But if you get nasty, you go, don't ever talk about it. We're not going to talk about it, blah, 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 blah. Then you get your back up wanting to know more. And there's obviously something more. You're hiding something. It's hiding. It's a conspiracy. Going, no,
yep.
Dude, It's not a conspiracy. It's a family thing. So as soon as Smitty tells you, don't ever say anything, he's top secret, all he's doing is he's checking all the boxes off for you.
All the boxes. That was my confirmation over and over and over, yes.
And what did you do with the information? What did you do with that seed that had been planted many years before, and now the plant's growing? Okay. What happens next?
So I get married, I have my son, get divorced. Well, not yet. I'm not divorced yet. I'm in the house with my wife and my son. That my learning started. My teaching started. In like 84, we moved into this house right across the street here. We move in. We're there till 88. The 88 was the split up. My son went with her. She got full custody. I was in the house by myself for the next 10 years, 11 years. So I'm in there and I'm working with my cousin doing concrete, and I would come home, and on the weekends, it was like my learning time. My car went out. I had to borrow my mom's car, so I walked over to my mom's house in the morning, picked up her car, went to work, came home. I had to drop her car off in her garage at night. So I'd drive it over there. I'd walk back. She was like 3-4 blocks away. And as I'm walking back, my learning starts. I see this orange something behind this tree right across from me as I'm walking home. And then I see it right behind this other person's fence as I'm going. It followed me. It's directly right across from me. I see this orange right behind the fence. And then as I'm continuing up around the corner, I see it through the bushes. It's not come out. It's just there. And as I'm walking, I kind of keep my eye looking over and I'm going, what the heck? And it follows me all the way home. And I go in the house, I'm kind of going, what was that? And for the next probably month, 2 months that I was using her car, I got mine fixed. And every night, this orange, not a light, just like an orb. And looked about,
How big was it?
About basketball size.
Okay.
Okay, and it's, because I can see the image of it around everything. Okay, so I get my car back. I'm done borrowing hers. And like I said in the story, my wife, which was a friend at the time, she needed a place to stay. So she moved all her luggage into the back bedroom, and she left for the week or something. Well, I see my cat starting to scratch. Well, my cat's never scratched. So I go back in her bedroom and man, I open the door and you can just see the fleas. Well, where she was, they had like 5 or 6 dogs that ran outside all the time. And when she brought all the stuff over, she didn't know it was there, but there was fleas in her stuff. So I went and bought like 6 or 7 bombs and put 2 in that bedroom. I put 1 in mine. I put 1 in the other bedroom and 1 in the kitchen and 1 in the living room. Lit them all off, closed all the windows, everything, and grabbed my telescope, took my cat outside and let her out. And I got in my truck and started going up Highway 50. It's pretty dark. I'm going to go find a place to set my telescope up. So I'm cruising up 50 and I pull off and see if there's any dark spots back in there. I couldn't find anything. I got back on the 50 and drove up a little further. I pull off and I'm going on this frontage street, and this frontage street has this gravel road going off to the right. No signs, no nothing. I'll just check back here, whatever. So I drive back. It's probably 300 or 400 feet back to this big opening, a big rectangle, probably maybe a 1/16 of a mile, like 300 or 400 feet long, 200 or 300 feet wide. And there's this big giant metal shed in the back of it, probably like for snow equipment or something for Caltrans is what I thought. There was no equipment. It was all closed up. So I parked my truck. I got my telescope out and I'm pointing it up way towards the end where the tree line is. And I'm setting it all up and I look up and I'm trying to get a view of something I can put the telescope on. And as I'm looking up the very end of it, this orange orb comes flying over the trees. Oh, and on the way up there, I was seeing this orange orb like in the forest and little glimpses of it just out of my peripheral, nothing to get my attention real good to draw me away from driving, but I knew it was there. Then all of a sudden it comes flying over these trees and they're 100-foot tall, flying over the trees. It comes down to my eye level as it's freaking zooming across the freaking span of this area. And it comes right by me, like 3 feet from me. And it's right next to me. It comes by, it's a basketball, illuminated, orange, and it goes by me and it stops. But as it's going by me, You know, like the old cartoons, when something's going fast, it was kind of sectioned.
Yeah.
That's how it looked when it slowed down. It was like sectioned right there, and it stopped, and then it went right back up over the trees. And I kind of went, hmm. Now it had been a good couple, 3 hours. And I said, man, I don't know, that's maybe some warning I shouldn't be here. So I gather up my telescope, put it all in, stop and grab something on the way to eat on the way home, and get out and open the doors and everything. Everything's cool. Fleas are all dead. I continue on. So I'm kind of wondering what this thing is. And I'm watching TV one time, and I think it was Real TV. Back then, it was called this TV show. I'm watching it, and it says it's time for commercial. It says next, Foo Fighters. I'm going, Foo Fighters. So I'm watching it. Commercials get done. It comes back on, and it starts showing about these basketball-sized, round, orange, not lights, but just a ball. And it says in the 40s, 50s, 60s that these orange orbs flew around our guys during wars and flew around the Germans, around the Japanese, and they thought, the Japanese thought they were ours, we thought they were the Germans, Germans thought they were the Russians, all this. Nobody knew who they were, but they were dancing around the planes. They go in front of them while they're cruising along. They're just kind of playing with these things. So I go, Foo Fighters. So I'm out in my backyard and I see this plane going by, and I see that it doesn't have the little flashing strobe to it. Oh, that's kind of weird. So I get my binoculars out. I go look at it, and it, sure enough, does not have a little blinking strobe on it.
This during the day?
I'm looking at it. What's that?
Was it during the day or at night?
It was almost getting night, but still a little light out. So as I'm looking at it, I see this little orange orb come flying right up to it. It goes right to the very front of it. It goes to the back of it. It goes to the side of it. Goes to the other side. Goes right in front of the windscreen of the plane. It's playing with this freaking plane up there. I'm going, what the heck? I go, there's that Foo Fighter. And at that point, I kind of dub it the nickname of Spot. So, because I've been seeing this thing a lot. So it's Spot. It's showing me itself in all different manners. And then I'm in the backyard one time. I'm looking all around. It's late at night. I'm always outside looking up. I'm looking towards the backyard, way back in the back. And all of a sudden, this orange orb comes flying over the fence, comes 3 feet beside me, just like before, just sectioned like it was slowing down, and then right back up over the fence. All kinds of orange orb. Spot was around me. I was seeing it all the time. When I'd leave to go places, I'd see it up in the sky. I'd see it, over off on top of the building over there. It was just around all the time. It's kind of.
Could you see through this thing like it was translucent, or was it solid?
It was solid. It was a solid orange there.
It wasn't like there was no reflection in it or anything kind of wibbly and moving within that solid mass. It was just a
just a solid mass of orange light.
And it
illuminated.
It was self-lighting then too.
Yeah.
Right.
No emitting light. Yeah.
It was just lit. It was there.
It was just a
that sounds like
ball.
It sounds like the balls. Dr. Lynn Kitai, who did the documentary The Phoenix Lights about the UFO parade in Arizona about 24 years ago. The days before all those UFOs appeared to people, she was looking from where she lived down into the valley, and that she described basketball-shaped lit orbs, like moving and playing in the valley.
Yep.
So it's interesting. Any idea why you?
So no, not initially.
Okay.
So that continued for quite some time. So while that was all going on through the years, I had got to the point where I was probably getting close to getting kicked out of the house. My mom had these 3 different houses, and I was in one, my sister was in another, and I don't know, one of her mothers started talking to her about taxes and what if you have to go into the hospital. So she started telling us we're going to have to move, get out of the houses and find someplace else. So I'm getting to that point, but we don't have to do anything yet. And this girl calls me that I knew for this last 10 years or so. And she says, hey, I'm moving. I got some stuff. Why don't you come on over? Went over, started looking through the stuff. I saw a Polaroid camera in a brand new box in the back. I dug it out. I said, how much you want for this? She said, $20. So I bought that and a few other little things. And I stopped at Rayleigh's right up here and grabbed a couple packs of film. Came home and just loaded it up and see how this thing worked and started shooting pictures. When I was shooting these pictures, just checking them out, they'd spit out and I'd sit and watch them develop right in front of me. And I went outside and there was this light up in the sky and this light was just sitting there. So I came out about 15, 20 minutes, half hour later. It's in the same spot. So I took a picture of it. It wasn't dark yet. And then took a few more pictures around, set them inside my house to finish developing on the back of my chair. Went outside. It's still there. So I took another picture of it. A few more outside. Went inside and set them down to where they could sit and finish developing. And I picked up the other ones that were developed. And there was these 2 that had these strange images on them. Now they look like a fingerprint. I looked at it and went, man, doggone it. I touched this one too long. So I put them in my drawer. 4 or 5 years later, I'm watching TV and there's this commercial of this Polaroid, the guy taking pictures with a Polaroid. He's got 3 other guys out there. He takes this picture and it shoots out. He grabs it and he flings it like a Frisbee to this guy 20 feet away. The guy catches it and flings it to another guy. And I'm watching this and there he catches it. I'm going, man, I did not touch that film any longer than any of those guys did. Went back and grabbed those pictures, pulled them out, started looking at them again. I'm going, that's not my fingerprint. It's way different. So I kind of look at these 2 pictures and I kind of get them and put them together. You put them together and one's a 7-inch long finger. The other one's the fingerprint of what it looks like, that finger. And you can see where the fingers pinched the film together and put the finger on it, and put the fingerprint on it. I mean, then I know what this is now. Because they've been showing me things. They've been showing me other things. Started with the orange orb, then it was a field of little tiny flashing lights all over this field. I'm going, what the heck? So I'm being shown things as I go along.
Well, I'll make some comments on it. This is when I first met you. This is, I met you, like I say, it'd be 2018
Right.
in Pasadena at Alien Con. And you had copies of those Polaroids and the length and the multiple like digits in the finger.
The joints.
It wasn't a human finger. It was like going across, what was it? You said 7 inches long or something? Or whatever, multiple digits? Yeah. Yeah, just tilt a little bit the bottom of it towards you, just a little bit more. So yeah, and I'm that one at the bottom, that long piece at the bottom's got multiple joints in the fingers, and the
Yes,
one on the
sir.
top. And if you guys, when you get his book again, First Contact 022022 or February 2022, you'll get really good looks at those. And they're not like, you know how you have ridges in our human fingerprint? They're not ridges. It's almost like a bunch of little hairs coming out. And
Well, that's what it looks like.
it's almost like Spider-Man, like in one of the movies where he's got these little hair comes out and he climbs a wall. I look at it and go, yeah, that's not people. That's something completely different.
But if you
And
look at it,
and I remember you walking around showing people. Now this is before you wrote your book. You were going up to authors there who have investigated not paranormal, but ufological things for many, many years, saying, what do you think? And they're looking at it going, I don't know. This is kind of interesting. And it was like you're walking around going, for God's sakes, believe me, look. And some people are going, yeah, whatever. I'm going to go over here and buy a slushie.
Right.
Or it's like, and I'm going, no, look what he's got. Dude.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I thought,
yeah, that was fascinating to me. And then in 2019, when I see you again, this part gets even weirder because we're talking about it, and I'm with the psychic who does recovery of missing time in people's lives. Skeeter Wellhouse. You go in for a thing with Skeeter. She literally has what looks like an epileptic seizure near the end of her session with you.
yeah.
She comes out of it saying that an ET came down and basically said, no, he can't know what's going on. And then a greater, more positive powered ET came in and told the other ET to get the frig out of there. And she came too.
Yep.
And then you and I sat down for an interview, probably there for an hour and a half.
Yep.
Watching the meter recording the whole thing. Nothing turns up on it.
I remember.
So
There
it will
was
be
nothing there.
so always interesting to see how this turns out if this actually gets recorded. Just checking.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing, James.
Yeah, it's like so this is the background for people who are kind of catching up at this point. But this is how I know Buster, and I know this is legit because I think she actually puts you in. Skeeter actually puts you under, like in a bit of a trance, and then it goes poof, and all this stuff comes out. You start remembering all this stuff.
No, she never put me in a trance.
Oh, she didn't? She just went into a trance?
She went into the trance because she brought in this entity exit that I was asking the questions to.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it's the one she had told me about before. And so I didn't record the first one. I didn't know I could, but I was recording this next one.
Perfect.
And the questions I was asking, I mean, getting down to like, so if you guys are billions, are you millions or billions of years older? And through her, he said billions. And I went, okay. So if you're billions of years older, so we have this primordial ooze that we kind of formed in, and then an electric spark charged that primordial ooze. I said, now did you guys form that way billions of years ago? Or was it a god that came down and charged that primordial ooze? Or what? And now that's when the entity said it was a spark. So that's when she started freaking out, and this thing started interfering.
Yeah, it's like too much information.
That I wasn't supposed to be asking those questions. But I've got the interview.
Yeah. Is that mentioned in the book at all?
I mentioned it,
Yeah.
but and I wanted to put the whole thing in, but I didn't know how to get it out of my phone from the audio
Oh, yeah. Transcribing it. Yeah.
onto. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, during your interview, was that the time that you got into questions about things that are, and I don't know if this is where you get into the February 2022 part, or does that come later now that this side of you's kind of opened up a bit?
Okay, so that part happened in 2016.
Okay.
2016, when the first alien convention ever happened. I got my pictures in the drawer. Been in there for 20 years. Well, no, 20 years before that. I took them when I pulled them back out and seen that it wasn't my fingerprint. It was a 7-inch long finger and a fingerprint of theirs. I knew exactly what it was right then. And I took them over to my sister's house. She had this new computer thing. She had this scanner. And I asked her if she could put it on the computer, however you do that. She goes, yeah, bring them over. So I brought them over. This was like 92, 93, 94, something like that. And so I sit there and she puts them up there. She scans them, puts them in the computer, and she pulls them up and says, see, there they are. And I said, oh, cool. That's neat. I go home. I call her every week. Hey, did anybody comment? Anybody say anything? Nothing, da, 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 nothing, nothing, nothing. Like 2 months went by. Every week I'd call her. Nothing. So I went over there after 2 months and I said, hey, can you pull those up and show me those pictures on that thing again? And she goes, sure. She gets in there and da, da, goes to it. And she goes, there it is. The pictures were gone off the computer. So I said, okay. I knew right then, this is not the time for this. I know there's going to be a time, but I need to just put them away and I'll figure it out. So I put them away. 20 years later, I'm watching the Ancient Alien show, as always, every once a week. I think it was on a Wednesday night then or something. But I was watching it, and all of a sudden, there was this commercial at the end. It says, the first ever alien convention in Santa Clara, coming up at the end of October. So I get on the internet, I log in, I get my tickets, I find a motel real close, I book that, 3 days and 2 nights. I'm going. And then I go grab my pictures and I pull them out and go, oh man, because for the last 20 years I've been asking, okay, when am I supposed to be pulling these back out? I got these pictures you guys gave me. When is it happening? Come on. Well, nothing for 20 years, and then this happened. So I pulled them out, and I'm going, uh-oh, should I even be doing this?
Yeah.
I go, okay, you guys, you showed me all these things. Show me something big now that I can see real well that I'm supposed to be pulling these out and going to this convention and throwing my name out, my family's name, everything. I'm throwing me out there, throwing the pictures out there. So me and my wife go up to Silver Lake, go camping. It's 8,000 feet is the top of the granite mountain. We're 750 feet below it at the campsite. So 3 days in, I can't sleep. I'm laying there. I mean, it's like 2 or 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. I've never been that awake at that time in the morning. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to get to sleep. And geez, all of a sudden I hear this like a low, staticky, crispy, like electrical noise coming close. Then all of a sudden it stops. And I hear it stop. And I know where it's coming from. I get out of my tent. I go look exactly where it was coming from. I had to look through the trees at the mile-long top of the granite mountain that I can see. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden, this orangish, reddish beam perfectly rectangle, the whole mile-long length of the top of the mountain. Comes right up to the lip, sits there. I go, oh, okay. Thank you for my confirmation. I'm going to be taking those pictures to the alien convention. I'm able to go in, and I didn't see it leave or anything. I just kind of just walked away. That was for me to see. It was probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Went in, able to go to sleep, went right to bed, and crashed out, woke up and told my wife, I'm going to the convention with those pictures. This is when it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be this way. That's when I knew for sure that I was kind of picked for this. I was given those images on those photos so long ago. Didn't know what for, didn't know why. I know they gave them to me. I kept asking in my mind, come on, you guys, when is this going to happen? I've got to put them away. So this was my opening to that, knowing that I'm supposed to take them, and I take them. And at the first convention, I'm filled, gigantic Coliseum. Before anything gets started, they're all up there. The panel's all up there, all the ancient alien guys and the producers. I jump up and I go, I have Polaroids. I have 20-year-old Polaroids with alien fingerprint and finger on them. You guys need to see this. And Ken Burns, the producer, looks out and he goes, hey guys, here's our next story. And I went, oh, cool. Right on. So he goes, come up and see us. When we're done here, we want to talk to you. Nice. So I wait till it's done. I start going back to my seat. Everybody's going, hey, can I see him? Can I see him? I walked all over the whole auditorium showing these people. So I go sit down, wait for it to be done. I go up there, and they're all looking at me like, okay, let's see this. So I show them. I show the producer. I show the people that are with him. I show all the Ancient Alien crew. And whoa, that's pretty cool. We're going to be seeing you, all of them said, we're going to be seeing you again. So the Ken Burns' right-hand man grabs me and says, okay, what's your phone number? What's your name? Takes it all down. He says, now when we get to a point where we have something else to go with this, and we do have something to go with this also, but when we decide to do a show, we want to put your stuff with theirs and do a show on this. Cool. Good. You got my name, you got my number. Let's do it. Nothing ever happened. So
No. Bad
big
show is.
letdown.
Yeah.
Just like with MUFON.
Yeah, MUFON is interesting. MUFON, it has been proven that MUFON there was somebody, the CIA came, like someone did a Freedom of Information Act request for the CIA, and it came out that MUFON in the States was getting money from the CIA.
To be shut up, just to shut up.
Yeah, so kind of, if everyone report your stuff to us, and then we'll hide it. Or the stuff we won't hide, we'll put into a book, and we'll sell it back to you and make money.
Oh,
Good,
huh.
MUFON. Anyway, that's why there's a group in Canada, in Western Canada, a guy used to run MUFON Canada. It's the Experiencer TESA, TESA, the Experiencer something, the Experiencer Support Association. And they'll do all the investigations, anything, Bigfoot, UFOs, anything. And they do a really good job at it. So I always defer to them instead of MUFON. But, it's kind of a kick in the pants. that you go through all that and you get people to go, oh yeah, we believe you, we understand, this is going to be good, just go sit over there, we'll get back to you. It's like, yeah,
exactly what it was.
It's a bigger thing.
Terrible.
But now look what's happening around us. We got stuff coming forward that is of interest. And
Very much so.
I don't remember if in LA when we were at the one in 2019, you got a chance to talk to Jeremy Corbell, because he was there with George Knapp, and he was. I think I met Jeremy first down in Oregon, McMinnville, Oregon. They have a UFO festival. You know, they have an anniversary every year of UFO sightings there, and he and Bob Lazar were there. But Jeremy is a documentarian. He did the Skinwalker Ranch one and the Bob Lazar one, and he's been the guy right now who seems to be ex-military people are leaking him information or video from 2019 and the Tic Tac and those kind of things. That one that's just out in the last few weeks with the thing going into the water and stuff like that. Jeremy was there too. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him and about your fingerprints, but he's the type of guy who'd be interested in that.
Did he have a booth?
No, he didn't. I think he was with somebody presenting, or he might have been presenting. But he was always wandering around on the floor talking to people too. But Jeremy, he's the type of guy who would have given you actually some time and looked at the stuff, and and if he couldn't help you, he would have pointed you in the direction of somebody else, because he's a bit of a
Judy.
He's a showman. He's a showman, but he actually has, he can put together some contacts for people and has the wherewithal to put pieces of a bigger puzzle together, where a lot of TV personalities really don't. They're kind of focused on what they do, and they're the ones that are important.
Okay.
Whatever else is happening isn't that important unless it's them. So that can be a bit of a pain in the butt. You went above and beyond when it came to, you're not only walking around trying to get some validation from people who've been in the UFO community for 20 some years. It's funny. Like I talked to, you met Eric Von Daniken.
Oh, yes.
He's written 50 some books on UFOs and he's never seen one.
Oh.
You've written one book on him and see him. You saw unidentified, flying stuff, or what is it? Unidentified aerial phenomena. You've seen these things you describe as basketball-sized orbs. Yeah, Eric's never seen any of that stuff, but he interviews people who has, and then puts it together and writes a book. Yep. You, on the other hand, saw the stuff and put it together in a book. But one of the things what I found was fascinating, what you did, is what you ended up doing with the validation of your fingerprints. You actually sent them out to an expert in fingerprint forensics.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about that.
Okay, well, that started with MUFON. I'm not going to tell you all the story, but I got it to I got the originals to the lead investigator in New Jersey. I never sent them anywhere. They'd always been in my control. He said, I need to see these pictures to evaluate them. So Chase Kletsky of MUFON had me send them to him. I sent them to him. Robert Spearing, he sent them back inconclusive. He said, I needed a fingerprint expert. I said, okay. Well, I didn't have any money. My best friend got some money later on, probably a couple of years after that. And so I started looking for fingerprint experts, and online there was two of them. I called them, I emailed them, I texted them for like 2 or 3 months. Nobody ever called me back. There was only two of them, two fingerprint experts in the whole Google thing. So I sit there one day, like it was like 2 to 3 months later, this one guy calls me, says, hey, I got this text from you, and man, I'm sorry, I didn't see it, or something didn't happen. So the day before this, I'm going, man, this has been a long time. Come on, you guys. And I'm just thinking this. Get a hold of one of those guys, get me the best one, and have him get a hold of me. We need this done. I need to get these fingerprints examined. And said, you guys can do some things. You've shown me all these things. Help me out here. The very next day, he calls me. He says, man, I have no idea how I missed all this. I don't even know why I'm in here looking at this right now. But I see your name and number, and What do you got? I said, well, I just said, well, I need these pictures analyzed by you. I don't do pictures, sorry. Oh, wait, hold on. I said, they're fingerprints on old. I don't know anything about that or anything. I check out fingerprints and go to court and decide whose they are and everything. I go, well, I understand that, but I want you to just look at them and evaluate them and tell me what you think. Well, I'm pretty expensive. You're just asking for something I don't really even do. And okay, how much? He goes, I need $1,500 as a retainer. I charge $250 an hour. I went, okay.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my buddy later. He'd got this money. His mom and dad owned property in Fiji. They sold it. Well, they died. Him and his sister got it. Went through a big, giant court process with the Fijian government and all that. Finally got to sell it. He finally got some money. And I said, man, they want $1,500 to check these fingerprints out. And he goes, do you need $1,500? And I said, I do. I'd like to really get this going, TJ. And I've known him for 40 years. My best friend, great friend. He says, I'll give you $1,500. I say, I'll pay you back. It's all good. And he goes, well, you know, my mom would have wanted you to have it. My mom loved you just like a son. I'm going to send it to you. Don't worry about paying me back. I went, whoa, cool. Thank you. So I send him $1,500. Send him my photos, my originals, $1,500. Sign the contract, send all that to him. He gets it. He gets it during the biggest ice storm that they've had in millennia or something, and it took like 2 months to get to him. And I could watch him on the tracking thing. They go all the way up to the top of Michigan, and he finally gets him. Calls me, says, Buster, I got him. Okay, cool. He says, so what are you expecting me to do here? I said, Bob, his name's Robert May. So I said, Bob, I need you to evaluate those, look at them, do everything you can, do your job that you're paid to do, and let me know what's going on. He said, well, okay, I'll do my best. So a month later, calls me up and says, Buster, I don't want any more money. I'm going to do the rest of this on my own. Whoa. And he said, and this is not going to be in my report, but wow, this really looks like what you're saying it is. But you're not going to hear me say that. You're not going to hear me put that, you see that in my report? Nothing.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, it was one of those things that I've dealt with expert opinion reports before from my policing. In fact, I was an expert and would be called on to give an opinion on something.
All right.
And I could see how he'd be reluctant to give an opinion because what he's looking at isn't going to be within his quiver of knowledge. So to give an opinion based on his background and knowledge and things like that it belongs to an extraterrestrial is outside of his expertise, but he can come really close to saying that.
Which is what he did.
Yeah.
So he says, so Buster, what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to keep the originals unless you need them back. I said, no. You got them. I want you to do what you need to do. He says, well, I got this other guy. He just retired from the FBI. He's a photography expert. I went, cool. He'll know about old Polaroids. Because I tried looking up Polaroid experts. None. Zero. That's old hat. So he says, so I've got him. I have these other questions that I need answered. So I'm going to get all my other people together, and I'm going to try to get all these guys together, and we'll form a little group. And they'll help me decide how to fill out your report. So he kept them for another 11 months. He actually 9 other top of their field experts. The CIA, FBI, Homeland Security, and 6 other top experts. Now, I don't know what the other ones were. I don't know what those were. I knew the photography expert is all. He didn't want to tell me no names, what their classifications are, whatever. Said it's all good. You just let me know. So I kept in contact with him. I tried to get back with him for like 2 or 3 months. He wouldn't get back with me. Then he finally get back with me and go, Buster. And I was over at my son's house. And he says, Buster. I said, Jake, come over here. My son, Jason. We sat down. I said, this is him. He says, Buster, are you sitting down? And my son's jaw just dropped and went, because my son at this point, not a real big believer. Now he knows I'm not jerking him. I'm not a liar, but it's really hard to believe. And so the fingerprint expert says, okay, so here it is. Now this is not going in the report. This is me and you sitting down having a beer, Buster. And he said, oh my God. All these other experts I've been talking to, they're all asking me, where did you get those pictures? And so he kind of gave him a little clue of me and stuff. And, but then I started throwing the February of 22 date out when I got that.
When you say you got that, what did you get to start throwing that date out?
So past the finger.
What's really interesting is Buster's feed just froze. Just came to a dead freeze. So let's hope we can get him back here. Buster, if you can hear me, actually, I'm going to phone you and see if we have one of those bizarre incidents again. And we'll see what happens if we can get Buster back on here. But his side of the video, if you're watching the video, not just listening to the audio podcast, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, so we're going to wait for Buster to see if he'll actually come back into the podcast. So that's kind of interesting. So you're stuck with me for a couple of minutes. And I keep, this is where I see you straight ahead, and then I look at the computer over here. So I have to see it when he actually pops back into the fray, so to speak. Now we've been talking to Buster Johnstone. You can get him on, contact him if you'd like on Facebook, Buster Johnstone, or on Twitter. Mostly on Facebook. He doesn't have a website yet. His book is out on Amazon, and it is called, again, First Contact 02-2022. Again, it's First Contact 02-2022. And Amazon and on Doubleday, I think he noticed it was out with them in the last little while. So it's kind of interesting how every time, not every time, the 2 times that I've actually wanted to talk to Buster and do an interview about the stuff that goes on with his ET challenges and all the stuff that's taken him years to finally get this out, that we seem to have a meltdown in communications here. So I'm just going to go back and see if I can actually invite him. And for those of you just tuning in, this is Buster's first Zoom meeting. So he's doing okay so far. Before we were so rudely interrupted,
yes,
by something out there, we were getting right to the end of where your report was.
Okay. Yes.
And so let's before we get into the February 2022,
okay,
because that's a really cool thing. But let's talk about what was the final product you got. You got a certificate from this retired FBI expert saying no.
I finally, after the year, he got the report to me. His report got to me. It was like a couple little paragraphs, and he said that the structure of the lines were analogous to humans, which is pretty much similar to.
Okay.
In that the pores, the skin pores that he found inside were analogous to humans. And he said that the fingerprints, they were that they were formed like ours, but in a different structure. He called the finger a digit. He called the fingerprint on a digit. We call our fingers digits.
Yeah.
So in the report, he shows the fingerprints that I had and the finger, and then it shows like a palm print, and then another fingerprint of a real person, of a human, and kind of throws them together. So he puts a really good report together, and with all these other 9 experts, he put it the way that he can't say it's an alien fingerprint. Nobody's ever seen one. Nobody's ever had one. That was his whole thing. So it's the whole report is in there from the first.
It's in the book, the full report.
All in the book, and his qualifications, 30 years of qualifications are all in the book. So,
it basically comes out saying that it's similar to human, but not.
Right. He said it's not from a human, that he'd seen 2 million fingerprints on this planet, and these were absolutely nothing like it. But the structure was built kind of the same, and that, like I said, the skin pore in it was kind of the same as a human, but not human. But yeah, they're billions of years older than us, so it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
So,
well, they may be Australian.
They could be Canadian.
Have you ever seen one of those guys?
Yeah, they could be Canadian.
Not human. Hey, I resemble that. So let's get into February 2022.
So there's the craft up on that mountaintop, mile long, orangish, reddish, going to sleep. I get up and start thinking, well, this is not for 3 or 4 months, and till the alien convention comes up in 2016 in Santa Clara. So I'm thinking, well, when should I tell people that we're going to have contact with you guys? You guys have showed me this now. I'm taking my pictures. You gave me the reasoning to go. I'm pulling my pictures out. I'm going to throw it out there. But when do I tell these people that we're going to have contact with you? When are we going to have first contact? And here I am having contact with them, asking when first contact is.
And they've been coming to Earth for thousands of years, so
thousands, if not millions.
First contact, but different first contacts.
Right. And so, well, here I am having contact with them, but I'm asking about first contact for the whole world. So, from that day on, for the next 3 months until I go to that convention, I am woke up at 2:22 every morning. They give me clues. I put the clues together. They don't talk to me in my head. They've said 2 things to me, but one was Buster and one was jerk. I kind of was acting like a jerk, and I mean, I heard it plain as day.
Yeah.
But other than that, they give me clues. I put the clues together, like show me something, give me some clue that I'm supposed to be telling these people this date. I was woke up at 2:22 every morning for 90 days. I roll over every night, and it's 2:22 on the clock. So I'm going 2:22, February of 22. And I first started saying February 22nd of 22. Then I switched it to February 2nd of 22. I don't know. 2:22 is my clue. So that's why the book is now February of 22 instead of an actual date. So between the 2nd and the 22nd.
Now, this is kind of important because for my listener who is like of the spiritual kind of background, we get numbers 444, 555, 222, and they're angel codes.
Okay.
So was Buster actually getting 222 as an angel code? Put that just off to the side a bit. Now, I knew Buster's book was coming out, so I posted on one of my social medias, I think it was Instagram, that because Buster and I had talked about it one time, February 2nd, 2022.
Right.
That seemed to resonate a bit more. But I put on my Instagram post a picture of a graphic of an ET saying, "We'll see you February 2022." And one of the people who saw it came back and said, "February 2nd, actually." And I went, "Who the heck are you?" So I go back in and I sent a direct message. I said, "Where did you get that date from?" And she said, "Well, my husband and I were out for a walk. Literally, see these mountains in behind me here? There's
Yep.
a smaller mountain right about there. So
Okay.
they're down in this area going for a walk. They look up and a big V ship is coming over silently. The big
Wow.
V shaped, and they both, I just got total, if you can't tell, I got total goosebumps when I said that. Anyway, they look at this saying, "Oh my God, that's crazy."
Yeah.
Anyway, they see this big V shape come out, and she and her husband are looking at it, and then disappears. They're like, "What was that?" And since that moment, she's been getting February 2nd, 2022, freaking downloaded
Really?
constantly into her, which completely validates what you and I had talked about years ago.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, a stranger, unknown to me, unknown to you, living actually very close to me, but totally not connected in any way, has no idea about your story, your book. And we talked about it. In fact, I got a local film fellow, a documentarian, Jason Mills. I said, "Hey, you want to talk to somebody about seeing a UFO? Get a hold of this couple who live over in this area and go talk to them." So he was going to talk to her about doing a little documentary about that, their what they saw. But it validated your date, like completely out of the blue, from going from like, yeah, sure, it's a bunch of twos,
Right.
sure, but it's interesting that her conclusion was visitation, like global visitation, where we're all going to know on that date was happening on February 2nd, 2022,
That's
which
correct.
is what your book talks about. First contact 02 2022. So, a coincidence? Yeah. That's a
No.
stretch for a coincidence.
No. Other people are getting fed that date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if anybody out there is listening and has also been getting that date, yeah, put your hands up. Get a hold of me. Get a hold of Buster on Facebook, Buster Johnstone on Facebook. Get a hold of me at the Oracles anywhere on my social media. Let me know when you got your February date and what you think is going to happen. And it's very interesting, Buster, on what's going on right now with all this, the Pentagon doing a report and all this little
Yes,
leaks of
sir.
disclosure and what's going on in Brazil and all around the world where we're getting more information about this stuff. It's
More
almost
sightings.
like maybe somebody in the government also has that date, because there are very sensitive, intuitive people working within the investigations of paranormal activity,
Sure.
ufologically wise, in the government. I'm sure somebody there, and if you want to get into the whole idea that there are ETs on this planet right now working with the government, I'm sure they're going to tell the guys they're working with, going, "Hey, by the way, human, I don't care when you're going to do disclosure, we're coming.
That's
Like,
right.
it's going to be on this date, so get your ducks in a row, and we're either gonna freak out your people, or you're gonna have to make it a little bit of a softer landing for when we actually do show up and say, hey, we're here."
That's
So
that's
maybe
that's my book. That's my
that's your
book.
book.
And
Yeah.
that's me being able to tell everybody on this planet that this is going to be a good thing. They've been bringing us up to this point. They've had other civilizations they've wiped off this planet. They've done it to other planets. when this civilization comes up to the point where they've evolved to this, to where we are right now, they start crashing their old technology on that planet. The Greys were just drones, expendable. The old crafts were expendable, but that's how we reverse engineer those. We get our new technology. We came out of the horse and buggy less than 100 years ago. And here we've gone to the moon. We're going to Mars. We got the CERN collider in the Switzerland, making big bangs and black holes. And if they're 1 billion years older than us, they can make giant big bangs and create new universes. That's one of the things I asked in with Skeeter.
You asked the Skeeter that during the woo-woo thing?
Interview with the exit, yes.
Hey, here's a question for you. Do you think are those beings from somewhere else, are they a mix of extraterrestrial as well as a mix of interdimensional beings? Like, could they travel?
That's exactly.
From a dimension to this dimension and step out of is it a blur?
Okay, I get into that in the book. They flash me. Now they're in the next dimension. I can see their energy swirls. And right in the dead center of this energy swirl is a little tiny light. And they get me to try to follow this thing. As I'm following this, they'll move this way and they'll move around. And then there'll be another one that flashes and tries to get me to go watch it. But I'll watch this other one, and if I kind of lose it, it'll give me a little flash right in the center. I'll pick it back up, and I'll continue on watching it. So yes, they're in the next dimension watching all of us. I can see their energy swirls. They flash me, and when I'm thinking good thoughts, I'll get good flashes, bright flashes. If I'm starting to think something wrong or something, they'll give me a black flash. When I was drinking too much beer, I'd go in and grab another beer and big flash on it. You're drinking too much, big black flash, bam. I quit drinking beer for probably a couple of years. I was drinking too much coffee. I went and I grabbed the next cup of coffee and I got a big black flash on it. I quit drinking coffee right at that moment. So that's how they clue me in on good and bad. I think that they stepped out of their dimension into my living room 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, picked up those two pictures, put them together, put their finger and fingerprint on it, set them right back up on my chair where they were, and stepped back in their dimension.
Yeah, I think you're right that the ones you've been dealing with are more interdimensional and more light being kind of beings, because I interviewed a guy a few years ago who lived in Utah and had a CrossFit gym where he was followed by orange orbs as he was driving down the highway, and he would see them going to and from the gym and back to his house. He then got a bit paranoid because he was also, he had the Black Hawk helicopters flying around his house, and one day he looked out in the snow and there was a footprint starting in the middle of the yard coming to his door. And Whoa. They never left, and they were just coming to the door, and they just came out of nowhere, came to the door and disappeared. It's like, wow. He says, I don't know what's going on, but I see these lights all over the place. And these guys are like legit people. They're not politicians or the chief of police or the mayor, or the doctor who's head of a hospital or something like that. They're just normal guys and girls. They're just normal people. And I think that's what scares a lot of others, is that it definitely could happen to you. But it happened to you. It could happen to anybody. It's not like these beings are not, quote unquote, targeting like the kings and queens of a society. They're targeting the society itself. but what is the reason? What is it inside of you and in your DNA and in your history and in your light and your being that connects you to them? So it's going to be interesting in the years to come, Buster, to see where you fit into, quote unquote, that family.
You're right. And they've showed me in my mind, that's a whole nother thing, the pineal gland. That's a whole different part of the story, another couple hours of that. But they, when I was doing this little trance that I do, I can get into and see the mind. As I was watching this being, his face was right there in my head. It's kind of a leathery face, but it's round. It has eyes, nose, mouth, just like ours, but round and leathery. So I'm taking it as that's the one of the original ones. That's Exit, the one that's been watching over me all my life, saving my life, directing me. No, don't go that way, go that way. To the point where I am right now, at the shop I'm at right now at the Home Depot, in front of all these people. But during that session, as he is looking at me, all of a sudden I start seeing this Rolodex of faces. I mean, probably 20, 30 faces that just go boom, 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 right in front of me. And they're all variations of different aliens from different planets. One of them had an owl as a face. So
That's interesting.
all those drawings you see on the pyramids and all the Egyptian texts of all those beings with animal faces but human bodies, that is totally freaking real. We are going to meet people like that. We are going to meet alien factions that are long cylinder faces, kind of strange looking faces. They're not wide, they're not oval, they're not egg shaped, but they're kind of thinned and really strange eyes looking, mouths, because they grew up in different atmospheres and different gravities, I think, things like that. But those entities came to a point in their evolution. They got to our point where they were given the old technology that the aliens give them, let them figure it out. Well, now we have atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, atom bombs. We can blow all ourselves up. They don't want that. They want us the way we are. They want us to join the galactic community. And I feel really good about this, that it's going to be a real good thing. We need them. Look where we are now. We're treating our planet like crap. We may be needing to go somewhere. Maybe this COVID thing, where everybody's getting inoculated, they're getting something that is going to change their DNA, maybe their blood, and allow them to get on these ships and go to another galaxy, universe. Who knows? But one of these days, we're going to be leaving, and I have to give blood. I get this real strong urge to give blood. So every 2 months, I give blood. My blood is being distributed. My son has my blood. My granddaughters have my blood. And that's why I think, and it's just, man, I have so much in my head.
Yeah. It's busy.
It's
And
so
you get to a point like when did this point happen to you when you basically sat down and said, why me?
I've never said, why me? I've always said, show me more. Give it to me. Bring me in. Who's out there watching me? I've had people walk up to me, go, hey, are you Buster?
Yeah. Why?
Yes.
Who are you?
I'm Buster. We're going to be meeting. We're going to be talking. I just got in town, so we're going to get together. That happened 3 or 4 times. Just the other day, about 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago, I'm sitting at work, and there's nobody around. It's later in the day. It's gotten slow. This older gentleman, probably 75 years old or so, comes walking up. He puts his stuff down. I scan it. He pays for it. And he stops and he goes, "So what's going on?" I go, "Oh, so I've talked to this guy." And I'm really good with faces. Didn't recognize this guy. He says, "So what's going on?" I said, "So, oh, maybe my book." "Oh, so my book. Yeah, my book's getting real close. I'm getting it to the publisher. We're doing some editing." No, 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 no. I know that. I'm going, "Okay. So what?" He goes, "Have you seen one lately?" I go, "Oh, maybe I've talked too in depth with this guy." And he says, and I said, "Oh, so in my mind, I can see," and then I stopped and looked at him. I said, "Have you ever heard of the pineal gland?" And he jumps right in. He goes, "Your pineal gland needs to be decalcified. Find out how to decalcify the pineal gland. Go online, call people, find out what you need to do to decalcify your pineal gland. It's very, very important. At this point, you're going to be needing to know that. Get it done, and I'll be talking to you later. See ya." And walks out.
No fluoride in the toothpaste.
Fluoride and chlorine.
Fluoride, yeah.
No fluoride, no chlorine. So I had to stop drinking tap water, which when my wife wanted the bottled water, she didn't want to be drinking the fluoride and this and that. So I started drinking that. After the first month, I went to put my cup underneath it again. Big black flash. Boom. I went, "Oh, so I'm not supposed to be drinking that. I'm supposed to be drinking tap water." So I went back to tap water. That was a year ago. So so now this guy says this, and I'm going, "Well, I'm supposed to be drinking tap water, but it's got the fluoride and the chlorine in it that I'm not supposed to have. What can I do to decalcify?" So I start calling around people. I look at Google, and it says, "Stop drinking tap water. Stop drinking tap water." No real
explanation.
No real explanation how to decalcify it, but just to stop doing that will help decalcify it. So we have this real good friend of ours she's a Reiki master. She does ghost tours. She's into, okay? And so I call her up and I said, "So this guy come in and he had to ground on me about getting my pineal gland decalcified." She goes, "I've been reading up on that just now, Buster. You need to drink distilled water, and you have to drink apricot nectar."
Which is probably easy to get.
Which you can buy it in the Kern's cans. So I found some of those. I've been drinking those, and I quit drinking all other waters, and I carry distilled water around with me all the time.
Yeah.
I've got gallons of it on my table right now. So
yeah,
they're watching me. They're watching me. They get they have their ways of talking to these entities. They give him the message. He comes and tells me. So that's how they're getting their point across to me right now, because I'd never seen this guy. He didn't have anything else to say to me. He said, "So get that done and we'll be talking." Walks off. He didn't want to know about aliens I've been seeing. He didn't want to know about the book. I know. He's a watcher.
Yeah, he's one of the guys.
He's one of the watchers that have been watching over me. And
that's interesting. We don't have, where I live, we don't have fluoride in the water. And wherever you people who are watching and listening live, check to see what the rules are for your water system. Some add fluoride, some don't. Some add chlorine. I think chlorine is added basically keep the water from getting filled with microbes while it's sitting in a pipe outside your house. But if you want, and I think dechlorinate, that word, to get rid of chlorine in the water, if you were to take water and just leave it out overnight, the chlorine basically evaporates out of it.
Right.
I'm not
All right.
a water scientist, so
Yeah.
don't. But I know my dog, Herbie. He will not. He would rather drink rainwater than tap water anytime, any day. He will look at his bowl in the house and he'll look out the window at the one on the deck and go, you know what? I'll go and drink out there. And
Okay.
he will bypass the tap water for rainwater anytime.
Wow.
So
They know.
he's got a pineal gland that's way better than mine. So yeah. Well, your book is going to be a fascinating read, and I'm really looking forward to it. The Amazons bringing it to my house.
Yes.
Yeah, it's especially when it gets into things like being healthy and getting ready to come on and this shift that's coming on this planet and what possibly our human roles are and our human connection to what we call star people or interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials, what our individual as humans connections are to those many, many different civilizations and races that exist out there.
Yep. Many,
So
many, many. Yes.
I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to have to, well, I will be having you back and forth on here quite often.
All right.
And all the best with the book. It's First Contact 02 2022. Again, when you Google it, First Contact, make sure you put in 02-2022, or it'll take you to a bunch of books that and movies and stuff that aren't Buster's. But Buster Johnstone, First Contact 02 2022. You can get a hold of Buster on Facebook or the Twitter. You can get his book on Amazon. It's out on Barnes and Noble. Again, just Google it. You go to the Google net, track down his book, and make sure you order it. It's going to be interesting what's coming up in the next few months, and it most likely is going to give you a better heads up of why governments around the world are kind of shifting a bit to letting us know that there is something out there other than us.
Disclosure.
Because they know it's coming.
Yep.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. So again, thanks very much, Buster.
You're welcome, James. Thanks for having me.